So yeah, 2023, the world of movies, and of course we've seen tons of movies. But what are the? And we're not going to give you a top 10 list. We just talk a few movies
Just talking the stuff we liked.
Yeah, stuff we liked, and maybe a couple of things we didn't like. Kathy, you want to start off with one?
Well, Barbie, of course, was a force, and I think I liked it because it was a movie that I am shocked it was ever made. The way it was made, that it's like a miracle that it made it to the box office. It was so smart and had so much heart and had such great performances. Like, this is when you hear we're gonna make a movie about Barbie, it's like, that's gonna be good. So you just don't think it's gonna be good. So they hired a great female director, and she had some good ideas, and they were actually on board for it. So I applaud studios, the marketing people, anyone behind this movie, because it had no business being this good. So it was a miracle of a movie. Really.
Well, of course, Greta Gerwig directed and co-wrote it with Noah Baumbach. So you have smart people making it. And I often give a hats off to Mattel. This is, Barbie is a Mattel toy, and they make fun of themselves.
They do.
The Mattel headquarters with Will Ferrell and the group of men. The board of directors,
a bunch of men at the table with the Barbie.
Idiots. Yeah. And I just thought, well, they're kind of making fun of themselves, or letting, Greta say, hey, we're going to make fun of you. And that was really refreshing. And there were some real good belly laughs in this movie. I laughed like 4 or 5 times. Really hard.
I loved the songs. And I just think Ryan Gosling in a movie that's about women, for women, by women, he stole the show. And I love that. He was so great in it. And I actually bought his sweatshirt that says I'm Ken Enough. It's so cozy and so hot. I can't even wear it for the podcast because it's so warm and cozy. But I have his sweatshirt, but I had to buy that. But I just thought it was fantastic.
No, it was. You know what it was for me? It was a movie made for everyone. It was like, I guess, young kids. I mean, young kids could watch it and get a laugh, and also, really old people like me could watch it and get a laugh too. It's like one of those broad spectrum of appeal kind of movies, except for the people that are always crying and weeping and crying about on the internet about how terrible their feelings get hurt. But
woke is because they criticize men in any way. But I think, it was really important, I think, for the messaging, the super empowering messaging for young girls. So it wasn't even preachy. It was in a really fun, heartwarming, loving way. And it was funny and smart. It wasn't like cloying or gross, but they let women think, I can do something. I can do something to make a difference. And it's odd that you even have to have a movie tell you that, because movies do not tell you that.
What I think it said was that I can do whatever I want.
That's right.
It's not like they kept saying in the movie, you don't have to be the president. It's not, you're not a failure if you don't get elected president. Right. You don't have to be the greatest surgeon in the world, but if you want to be, you can try it. You can try for it, but you can also be, something else.
And also just the, like the people that are crying about it. I've seen it twice. I don't get it. Like, it's like the men are treated, they're treated well in this. And at the end, there's this camaraderie between everybody, and it's sweet,
But they do some gentle ribbing of them,
that maybe not so gentle, but totally apropos. I mean, as a male, I'm not watching this. I'm going, oh my God, that's
so insulting.
That's it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It's funny. Everybody have a sense.
If you have strength of character, you can see things that point, at you, at your gender. It's not pointing at me because I don't feel like I'm one of those kind of men. I don't know. Maybe I am, but I try not to be, at least, and I understand it. I recognize it. And when you see it in a movie, I thought what was interesting about this is that you saw some things in this movie that you feel, and I imagine, not being a woman, but I try to look at it from a point of view of it expressing things that don't usually get expressed in movies. And it sort of took a look at something. There's men and women all over the place. That's what we are. And
50-50.
The relationships between people are so important. Yep. Society is so important, and it's good it's really good to understand the other side's, we're not taking sides, but the other side's perspective.
That's right.
It was just a lot of fun.
Never really been able to
And it
express
was
that in the past in movies. It's like it's always been men making movies. I mean, I'm talking about in the past. You see so many movies that have a man's perspective, and
that's predominantly still true.
women.
I mean,
yeah,
it's still true. I think the speech by American Ferrera is probably one of the most profound things. She said it in a fun way, but as she said it, I could feel the ache that gives you, because you're like, she's saying things that you feel you didn't even know you felt. Like you're like, that is what that is. It's that fine line when they do this juggling act and every fucking thing they do.
That was very smart writing. It was really a very insightful stuff. So, it's just great that kind of movie was a humongous hit. I mean, it came out the same weekend as Oppenheimer, two completely different films, but Oppenheimer in a different way. I mean, that was also very successful, made over $1 billion for a 3.5-hour movie about scientists.
Save the box office, these two movies.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm going to talk about a movie that just came out a little while ago and called Godzilla -1. And I'm going to do a members only review of that. So watch out for that.
Yes, be sure and join our channel, and you'll see special content that doesn't see the light of day on our public channel. Yeah. You can have a VIP video just for you.
So, what I got out of this film, it's a Toho film. It was made for under $15 million, and it's sort of just poked at Hollywood, saying this is how you make it in Japan. Godzilla is Japan's character, and it just felt it. It's really about like it goes back to right after World War II or during World War II. Japan is just crushed by 2 atomic bombs. They're just trying to rebuild their life, their lives. And this giant lizard comes out of the ocean, pissed off that it was right there at Bikini Atoll. And that's kind of where it's set, where he all of a sudden, the atomic bomb, it gets him upset. And it's just what makes the movie good. I won't go into it too deep. Is whereas other movies, even Shin Godzilla, it was the military, there was politics, there was this big world experience. Here, there's about 7 or 8 characters: a failed kamikaze pilot, this woman he falls in love with, and a few of his friends. And you just focus on those characters and you care about them. You actually care about characters in a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
And then Godzilla is fantastic in this. I mean, he's the baddest.
He's always good.
Yeah, but this is like just takes it to a different level. Like there's something about it. Even with there's some CGI that's a little bit not great, but the rest of it's really good. I'll just say, like, this guy, the director,
15 million. I mean,
it's impressive, though. I'm telling you,
CGI may not be totally on point. 15 million, but still a major feat considering.
A major feat. I mean, the guy loves Spielberg. This is very. There's nods to Jaws. There's nods to other films like that. Beautiful. See it at the theater if you can.
I'm definitely going.
I loved it.
Want to see that?
Okay. How about you, Burk? Give me something.
Well, I mean, we mentioned Oppenheimer. There's not a whole lot to talk about Oppenheimer anymore because we've done some Oppenheimer stuff. It's a fantastic movie. I love Christopher Nolan. This is a story that you can't really imagine making a movie of this. Like, what kind of crazy nut would say, let's make a movie about Oppenheimer? But it really is absolutely engrossing and fascinating. There's more to it than just a story about a guy, developing some new technology. There's existential crises and whatnot, things that involve relationships within the government and how a person is perceived by the government and what you can and can't get away with if you're in a position. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of mechanizations in, what word was I going for there? Machinations in there.
Yes, machinations.
Processes and things that happen when you become a scientist working for the government. That's right. And all these moral decisions and moral nightmares and things that if a compassionate person is involved in, things like that. Anyway, I won't say anything about Oppenheimer. That
wasn't your pick? What?
I just wanted to bring up, and it's a movie that we've all three seen, the Indiana Jones movie.
Yes, that was a very cute movie.
And the Dial of Destiny. Yes.
Yeah, it was fun. Way better than the Crystal Skull.
It's my second favorite Indiana Jones movie. I like the very first one, of course. That's number one. And I think this is my second favorite. I thought the characters were so much better than some of the other ones.
Yeah.
It had that insane sense of adventure. You just can't go into this one if you're ever going to say that could never happen. Just don't watch it if you're that person.
That could never happen.
Because, if you're going to say that defies physics, that's too, you can't turn that sharply in a tuk-tuk, it's like, no, watch it and fall into it and accept it. And it's just so full of fun, great characters, an interesting story. It's got some mind-blowing stuff that happens in it. And it's, of course, beautifully filmed. The budget is gigantic and it's got that blockbuster feel. It took me back to the way I felt when I saw the first one, where you're just being overwhelmed by amazing things that are happening nonstop through the whole movie. And you like everybody, and it's a rousing adventure.
And it wasn't Spielberg.
I know.
James Mangold, who's a good filmmaker.
Yeah.
I loved Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and I thought she was really strong.
I love
character.
Great. Yeah.
That is so good.
Yeah. So
and I there's talk that maybe this is a setup for the next film, which might be, a film about her, which I'm absolutely there for.
I like that.
She's a great, there's some scenes there where she's just great as far as an action hero, so.
Yeah, I could totally buy a whole series of those now,
All right, Kathy, what do you got?
I have to say, I think one of my favorite films of the year, and this is me probably even ranking above Barbie at this point, is the Jigartanda Double X. It's a Tamil film that is about filmmaking.
Roll camera. Sound. Action.
Kind of a spiritual sequel to Jigartanda, which is also about filmmaking, and also incredible. But this took it to a whole nother level. It was set in the 70s, which I love. It had a great whole series about elephants and the preservation of the elephants and their spiritual connection to the local people who live there and trying to protect them. And then the difference between film documentaries versus scripted movies, and an obsession with Clint Eastwood from the spaghetti westerns, which just made this movie. It was so good. If you want to beat the enemy, you have to think like Clint Eastwood. That was basically his theme. Highly, highly entertaining. Super recommend this movie. It had so much going for it. And I never get emotional at movies, never. And I literally cried in a movie, and I haven't done that for 20 years. So powerful, this movie. The ending just, oh my God.
Okay.
Chill.
I have it on my list, Kathy, because I want to see that. I'm going to talk about one that is going to be divisive, but it is by one of our favorite filmmakers, Ari Aster, who, of course, we talk about Hereditary and Midsommar. This one was a complete bomb. It was A24's biggest box office disaster. Beau is Afraid, starring Joaquin Phoenix. And it's a different film, and I watched it going, gosh, what do I feel about it? And some people said this is just a 3-hour sort of, Ari Aster trying to deal with his problems with his mother, he's
self-indulgent kind of thing.
I know. I hear that and I just go, I don't want
to. Joaquin Phoenix plays this anxious character who has issues with his mother. 3 hours of that. But there's another part of me that goes, I was watching something that I might have to watch a few more times because there's a lot going on in there you don't pick up. I just know, when you watch something going, what am I missing here?
Yeah.
And there's a lot, it just goes in these different directions. The first hour is incredible. The first hour, he lives in this apartment and there's junkies and homeless people around, and it's really scary and horrific. But then it turns into something else. He starts living with Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan in this nice house, and they sort of treat him as their son in a very weird way. Then he ends up in this sort of surreal world.
I saw that in the trailer, the little weird surreal moments.
Yeah. So I have to see it again because I just respect him so much as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
I want to know what he was trying to do.
Oh,
here.
yeah. He's one of my favorites, but I still bring myself to see this.
It's a tough watch. And some people say, it's just unwatchable. And some people say it's going to be a movie that's going to be talked about in 30 years as one of the greatest. So I'll just put that out there as something that I thought was kind of interesting and I want to watch again. So if there's a movie that comes out that does that to me, I feel there's something there. And plus it's Ari Aster. So,
All right.
So there you go.
He's not a filmmaker that just throws things together and puts it out. He puts a lot of thought into everything. So, I mean, even I feel like sometimes I see films that maybe are over my head. I feel like I'm pretty savvy, but once in a while there's a film that I feel like, okay, I think I'm missing something. And if I give it a little bit more time, maybe I can go, aha, I know what. I know.
So maybe that's this film. Maybe it's not. Yeah. Maybe it is just, I don't know. So anyway, so check it out. So, okay. How about you, Burk? What else you got?
Well, there was a movie that came out a while back that got a little bit of buzz, not much. And I absolutely have so much respect for filmmakers who make movies that aren't based on a superhero comic book, although I love those. I love my superheroes, but it's not based on an already branded thing. It's not a sequel. It's a completely brand new science fiction story. And the movie is called The Creator. And it's, science fiction is its own star, if that makes any sense. A lot of times when a science fiction movie comes out, it doesn't have to have a big star. It has to have a concept. And the concept of the science fiction movie is often the location of the star power, if that makes sense. But this one had John David Washington, who was so fantastic in Tenet, in Christopher Nolan's Tenet. Just a real solid kind of an actor who's a very natural. You believe him, but he doesn't have to hard sell it. He's very low key, and he's great in this. He's like a real person, and you believe him, and you're with him on this thing, and that adds so much to a wild concept science fiction movie. I mean, if somebody's being a little bit too broad and weird and not committed, you don't believe you're in that world. But if you have somebody like this to follow, you believe you're in that world. And this world is very grim. There's really nothing. It's a dark movie. It's not a feel good science fiction movie. The trailer kind of made it look like a company of men kind of a story where our hero has got this task to save this adorable child or person or whatever and get them from here to there. It looks like that. It looks like this ultimate weapon turns out to be this cute kid. Oh, I can't kill the cute kid because it's a kid, and so I've got to save the kid. But it's really not that. It's darker than that, and it's and the world it takes place in is fantastic. The world building is great. It's
Gareth Edwards directed.
Well, it's Gareth Edwards, who is an incredible storyteller, a really great storyteller. But the production design in this is just fantastic. I mean, the world building, the technologies that you see, the ideas about AI and robotics and warfare and survival and things like that are told really well in this. It's one of those films where you're dropped into the future and the technology just sort of happens, and if you're not paying attention, you might miss something cool. But it's a great story, great dramatic story. There's a few little tropes in there, a few little things that happen that you feel like, God, you just have to have that ticking countdown scene, right?
Yeah.
And you have to have the scene where somebody closes the door and they're in the window and the person is like, no, you can't do it. And they're like, I've got to do this. And the person is like, no. And then, and
not Penny's boat. Oh, that.
Huh?
I was like, I'm doing the hand, from Lost. Not Penny's boat.
Yeah. Not Penny's boat. That's right. Yeah, that's going back.
That classic, I gotta do it. Okay.
Yeah. But I've got to see that because it's on Hulu now. It's actually streaming on Hulu, The Creator. So that's high on my list.
It's a big world. I mean, the fascinating thing about filmmaking for me is when you can effectively create a reality that does not exist. And I've worked on films like that, and I know how difficult it is because you have to make everything. If somebody, like I always say, if somebody picks up a pen, it has to be a future pen, or else, I mean, that's not a great example, but you know what I mean? Like if somebody's driving a car on the freeway, we can do that now, present day, 2024 car driving down the freeway, no big deal. But what is that going to look like in 100 years? Right. And that's a huge part of feeling like the world is real that you're watching in a movie. And this world felt real to me. It felt, I loved the way they built the world. I also liked the fact that they took a chance and made it grim. It's dark and is not a happy world. And some really terrible things are happening. And yet it's got, and one thing I have to say is a lot of people are scared right now about AI and what's going to happen with AI and all that. This one addresses that, but this is not a spoiler to say that ultimately there's a very interesting and sort of encouraging, slightly uplifting cluster of ideas around AI and what may possibly be our salvation from, our computer overlords.
If we deserve it.
If we deserve it.
And questions like that too, whether or not we do. And what, if something terrible happens, maybe, I don't know, what if our pets suddenly had more power than us? Would they be our enemies or would they help us?
Yeah.
I think they might help us.
They might. My pets love me.
Yeah.
Nice, interesting.
Yeah.
Kath, do you have another one or a movie
I have a ton. I can do some like honorable mentions, and then also I just want to call out I gotta have my favorite horror movie of the year. Gotta throw that in there. Gotta have those. I have a couple of those too, but I'll try and pick one, but I won't. So I think the biggest surprise, best horror movie I saw this year was When Evil Lurks. Now, that's a Mexican horror film. It's sounds like something I was like, well, I know I've seen possession movies a million times and they all look the same and I'm not that interested. So I kind of turned it on like, well, it's on Shudder, I'll just watch it. And so I start watching it. That movie blew me away. They had so many good ideas. They did not pull their punches. It was like extreme. They had, when a child's in danger, they don't get hurt. They get hurt. Like there's crazy shit in this movie. There is one little moment with the goat that I fast forwarded, I will admit. But other than that, it had a really, really grounded feel to it, really beautifully made, just very impressive screenwriting and just lots of high stakes. It's fantastic stuff I have never seen before in a possession movie. So I love that.
Cool.
They're basically treating it like possession was kind of this disease and that it could be spread. So you can't kill someone who's possessed because then it'll just spread. So there's this whole, thinking around. So that was fantastic. So I love that. And then just on the other side of the spectrum, there was a Indian horror film called Ramasham. It was actually a horror comedy that was fantastic about using a Ouija board to talk to the spirits, but it all goes awry. It's a bunch of doofuses that,
As it does.
Yeah. A bunch of doofuses in the house living together, and they decide they could make some money if they bring in people they found this Ouija board who they can tell their future and all that. And of course things go bad. So that was awesome. If you're looking for some comedy, and it was very fun. And then the other little quick one is Outwaters, which is kind of hard to find. It's on Screenbox, I think, but that was also a fantastic representation of found footage that I had not seen before. And it was genuinely, I kind of got scared watching it. Like, shit, like it felt epic. Like there were moments where I was like, what is happening? Like really well done.
What's the name of that one?
Outwaters.
Yeah, I saw that and that was quite good. Yeah.
I loved it.
Interesting found footage, a different way. Yeah. Yeah. Outwaters is good. I'll just mention a couple of quickies. I won't go into them too much. And I want to talk about a movie I really didn't like.
We'll save you those.
Okay. Well, I really liked, these are movies that surprised me. Like No One Will Save You, which is a Hulu movie.
So
I
good.
thought it was really just like something special, a character that doesn't say much or barely talks.
No dialogue.
Almost zero. I mean, there's one short line,
which kind of turned me off at first. So when I heard there was no dialogue, I'm like, this just sounds pretentious. I don't want to see it.
But she's such a good actress, Caitlin Dever. She just carries the movie. Yeah. It's surprising, even though it's like a home invasion. There's just some great stuff in it. It's really gripping, and also kind of touching at the end. I was actually
really
touched
sweet,
by
actually.
it.
Yeah, a lot of sadness at the heart of it.
Yeah. I liked it. I had some issues with it when I was watching it. I felt like I didn't understand why certain things were happening, but I found myself thinking about it the next day and thinking about it. My wife and I watched it, and she would kind of, like, it's one of those things where, like, in the middle of the night, you hear a voice and it's like, well, what happened when this and you realize that she's still thinking about it.
That's a good movie then.
That's a good movie.
Just forget about it when you're done.
I love the surprises. We go, where did this come out of left field? This guy Brian Duffield, who wrote and directed Love and Monsters, did this, and I think those are the
loved that movie.
And that was a great movie in a different way. It was really fun.
Really
good. And I'll just mention Cinemondo because that's another divisive. You either love it or hate it. For some reason, that stuck with me
too.
In a way that I don't know why, but I just said, wow, that kind of got to me. And it was very impressive.
Last moments of that movie just chilled me for some reason. Like, whoa, I was inside of it by then. I loved it.
I need to give it another chance because I started watching it. I did that thing that I hate when people do. I started watching it, and about maybe 20 or 30 minutes into it, I was like,
is this it? Well, I get that, Burk. I get why, because it's there's not much happens in it. It's very dark.
Very unique.
You have to sort of be
in it. It's just like shots of doors and windows and the wall and the door and the window and the wall.
Yeah,
and I felt like going to keep
art house pretension kind of vibe, but for some reason it worked for me. It doesn't work for everybody.
Nope.
I need to get myself in that mood.
You have to be in the right zone where you just almost like you're waiting for yourself to be like hypnotized. So you sit, you just sort of your watch, just absorb it, and then not try and anticipate or think it through. Just let it sort of wash over you, and it just kind of works its magic. It's a very strange movie.
Right. Yeah. I'll give it another shot.
All right. Do we want to talk about movies we didn't like, or?
Well, I think Burk has one more.
Oh, Burk, you got one more. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want
to wrap up with the best.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap up with the best. No, I actually no one will save you. I liked, but what I wanted to do is like really quickly go through some TV stuff that
we're doing that next.
That we're gonna do a separate episode.
Yeah, no, we're just doing another section. We're gonna do that.
Okay,
another section of TV.
Okay,
you don't have another movie?
I'm done. I think the other.
I probably stole your movie. No one will save you. I think I did that. Sorry.
No, it was. But we're going to talk about movies that we did not like, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that now.
Okay, Kath, why don't you go ahead? What didn't you like? I have two, but go ahead. Maybe one of them's the same.
Well, I'll leave the one I know we all think is the worst movie of the year, so we can all talk about the end. But I think. Probably Five Nights at Freddy to me was the worst film I'd ever seen because there was no reason that needed to be so bad. Well, of this year.
It was. I don't know why that was so successful. I agree with you. It's so dull.
That's the part but that's why it's also high on my list because I watched it. I'm a horror fan. I give a lot of slack to horror, and I knew it was a video game. I love video games. Video game horror. I still like that. So I'm watching it, going, "Why is this movie so fucking boring? What is happening here? Nothing happens and every punch is pulled. There's not a single scary moment in it. The robot things are kind of cute, but it's like, this could have been good. They did not make it good. So
they made it.
That was hugely disappointing to me. So I put that high on the list because it just was such an easy gimme movie to make and they screwed it up. So there's that.
And for me, I'm going to talk just briefly about Exorcist Believer, another David Gordon Green, pooping on great films. It's
Halloween Ends this year or was that last year?
That was last year.
Okay, because that is the worst film ever made. I'll say that.
This one, the first 15 minutes, I actually went, "Oh, this has a potential," because he tried to film it like William Friedkin.
Okay.
He did. At the beginning, it takes place in Haiti, and it's sort of like that sort of almost like Altman-esque. You're just watching scenes of stuff happening, and even they had the same font. So, and there was no music, not a lot of dialogue. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting.
Pulling it off.
And then as soon as you introduce the two girls that end up getting possessed, the movie goes so left. And you have poor Ellen Burstyn. They said, we're going to get her from the first film, who I love.
Yeah.
And she's in it for 15 minutes. And she's completely wasted. And the movie just goes down it just completely falls apart. And you just sort of marvel at how
another gimme. Could have been so easy.
I know.
It was horrifically
Was Linda Blair in it? I could never figure out who she's actually in it.
I'll just, because nobody wants to
spoil it, because no one should see this
film. At the very end, Ellen Burstyn's, she was attacked in the movie, and then of course she's out of it. But at the very end, she's in a hospital bed. She's lost her eyes. They were poked out. Her long lost daughter Reagan, who they were on, not in touch for many years, comes in and kind of holds her hand, and the last shot is like, I love you, mommy, or something like that.
So they also waste Linda Blair. Another wasted moment in the.
She's in it for 30. She's in it for 30 seconds. So it's a complete way. If you love The Exorcist, I know we all do. It's a holy grail film. Don't waste your time.
You mean two? It's like a double 2 for 1 in this movie, and it still didn't work.
Watch the first 15 minutes. You're gonna. I was hopeful. I was like,
I'm not watching.
But then, it goes really left turn into hell, literally.
In its defense, how can you make a movie? Exorcist
3 was good. And that's because it was William Peter Blatty. So I think it's just a cash grab for Blumhouse and a cash grab. It's like, hey, what else are they going to do? Are they going to try to bring back another great Rosemary's Baby? They're going to do that. I think
it's beyond a cash grab, because they paid a fortune for the rights to The Exorcist. They did not make money on that movie. That movie, they're underwater from buying the rights. Now they have to make another one. Just get a good director. Just get rid of David Gordon Green. He sucks at horror. Please stop giving him horror movies. He made The Halloween Ends, which should have been also like Friday and Five Nights at Freddy's, the easiest movie to make, and he screwed it up. So don't do it anymore, people.
I think he doesn't like horror films, and he's sort of sabotaging the whole idea or something. I don't know what it is. It's like that idea you keep hearing. It's like, oh, this is a horror film for people who don't like horror films, and it's like, well, then it isn't a horror film,
right?
Yes. So anyway, agree totally with all of this. Okay.
All right.
What you got, Burk? Worst movie. Let's have at it.
Okay. Well, I think should I go ahead and bring up the one?
Let's bring it up. The one we all think is
we're gonna pull this rotting fish out of the bag and drop it on the deck of the ship in front of everyone. Go on
too long, but we will. Okay.
Talk about it.
It got a lot of buzz. It's got people in it and around it that I really respect. It's the kind of story that I love. Mark and I just mentioned this. It's like, how could this fail? The movie is called Leave the World Behind.
Leave this movie.
Gotcha.
So go ahead, Burke. Sorry, I have a lot to say, but go ahead.
We've talked about this already so much. I feel like we're going over it again and again. But we all watched it, and we all had the same huge problems with it. It seems like an example, like we just were talking about with the Exorcist movie. Yeah. It seems like a Twilight Zone-ish idea, one of those classic "what if this happened" kind of
like an M. Night Shyamalan movie a little bit.
Yeah, kind of a science fiction premise, which I love. I love it when people take a premise like this and explore how it affects the people who are in that situation. That is classic. I mean, that's what I love. And unfortunately, this is an example of someone who doesn't know how to make movies like that. It's kind of like they think this is maybe what makes a movie like that interesting, but it isn't. It was like all the things that make movies like that not interesting.
Yes.
It took the premise, and at first I was along for it. I was there.
Yeah.
I like it when it's like you know a normal family thing, and then something a little askew happens, and then you're wondering how come this is happening? How come this is happening? And it was sort of like what I loved about that TV show Lost, at first where you're like, wow, all these pieces of this fascinating puzzle, and what's the answer? And you start speculating, you start wondering, and it pulls you through the story because you're like, I want to know what happened.
You're making it sound good, Burk.
But then you find out slowly that it's not very good.
There's no there.
Well,
It's just not.
You have this you have a great cast, but right off the bat, if you've ever lived in or been to New York City, they say we're gonna go on vacation outside of Manhattan to this, and I'm thinking the Hamptons, that's 2.5 hours away, and that's where it's set because there's these beautiful mansions, there's these beautiful beaches. Yet they can look across, they can just look a little bit, and there's Manhattan right there. I go, what is this? Are they in like the Bronx? It's not reality.
Yeah. Which they could have done at the beginning of the film when there was all this weird stuff happening and they were wondering what's going on in the world.
What's going on in New York?
I don't know. Go in your backyard and look across at the city and see if there's a blackout.
We need to drive home to New York to find out. But we're just going to drive home and find out.
But there's
a movie about you don't have internet. That was the whole movie. Is the internet didn't work. That was literally 3/4 of the movie. Like, we can't get the
GPS
internet.
doesn't work, and
what happened? And the weird obsessive storyline of watching Friends. Like the daughter, it went on and on. Over every scene was about her wanting to see the last episode of Friends. Like, it was constant, and then it never pays off. Why was this in the story?
You can kind of tell what they were going for. There's the scene, and it was like a bit of a bludgeon in a few scenes where you have a main character who doesn't have his GPS or his internet, and he said, I'm a weak man, I don't have, and he actually sort of tells you that I can't function without my technology. And then and then there's another character who's supposedly one of those kind of people who has his own generator and has a self-sufficient kind of guy. And Kevin Bacon
really used him way more. He was funny.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about Ethan Hawke's character, Burk, who you're talking about. Like, he's like, I'm going to go out the next morning and see what's going on, go into town, right? Yeah. Remember, they're supposedly maybe 5 or 10 miles from New York City. He starts driving like he's in Kansas. Like, you can't go a 1/4 mile without hitting a convenience store or a town or something. Yeah. And he's driving around because his GPS doesn't work. Come on, man.
Is he that helpless?
Stupid. Yeah.
But the other thing too, at the beginning there, when they are on the beach is crowded with people, and there's people everywhere. It's like people vacationing and whatever. And a boat comes aground literally on the beach. Not
a big oil tanker.
Not taking into account how much underwater substructure there are on ships.
Well, I figured it was dragging through the sand. The bottom of the ocean is just plowing through.
It would have to eat through like.
But why would the ship?
Oh, it's stupid, but it's still the best scene.
But where did all those people go? The people who were on the beach.
They ran away. They ran.
Oh,
that's so stupid. It was a bad scene, but it was still the best scene.
But also, there's the scene with the Teslas, which should make a lot of sense.
Oh my God, kill me with that one. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scene
about. Don't go away from the Tesla scene yet.
Yeah, let's stay there for a second.
They first of all, it started out as kind of a cool scene. The idea that Tesla's on auto drive are going down the road and hitting each other, like just basically backing up as they bam into, which also wouldn't happen because auto drive. But I guess they're saying, well, hackers, but. Then they get in and they try and drive
on
back.
Our self-driving vehicles. We're letting the machine do it for us, and so here's what we get.
But then they get in their car and they drive down and they're trying to dodge this big scene where they dodge. All you had to do is go off the road.
Yeah,
Teslas are not leaving the road, and I'm like, just go off the road.
And they didn't make any attempt to show something that would stop them from going off the road, like
no, it was
concrete
a desert
road.
Or something. Nothing. They could have driven on the sand or whatever. It was so bad. Like,
but I was
sadly conceived.
Full of things like that.
The whole thing was that.
The scene that got me the most, and I just can't understand how this happened, was the scene where Mahershala Ali's character walks up to the beach. There's no big sand dune in front of him. It's just a flat beach. Yeah. And he looks down and sees what looks like a watch band or something. He goes, He looks at the watch band, he pulls it up, and it's attached to an arm, a pilot's arm. You go, oh my God, a pilot. Then he kind of looks up, oh my God, here's a whole 727, whatever. It crashed.
Huge wreck as I walked.
Yeah, suitcases, people, dead bodies, fuselage. It's like, you're not going to see that or smell jet.
And no aircraft fuel smell.
And not to mention, as he's doing this, walking away, another plane crashes. You know, okay, like
and you have to run away from it. Oh no, I don't want to get hit by a plane.
So the weird thing about that is like, okay, maybe the flight path, okay, they could be on the same flight path. But if everything went down about 8 hours ago, or, you know, the next morning from the night before, that plane would have crashed way out in the middle of the ocean, right? As opposed to sort of just landing. I don't know. It just felt like that's when the movie lost me. I said, "This is so
the house," and there was no mention of, you know. Did I just hear 2 massive commercial airliners crash while you were out there at that other house?
No, they were busy dancing.
Oh.
Some bizarre scene right there. Like, what the hell? So anyway, just terrible. It was so full of things like that.
A few of those things you can maybe overcome if the film has a sense of fantasy to it or something.
Right. But it's an otherworldly vibe.
Yeah.
But the internet didn't work. Does the internet work next door? Let's find out if the internet works.
Well, he knew they had a satellite phone. Satellite phones work with the satellite.
But I can't watch TV. It's a big problem.
Yeah. But thank God that house that was 3 doors down had a beautiful state-of-the-art, bunker that had friends.
Yeah, that was handy.
And they didn't stay there.
The kid knew about for some reason.
Why aren't they in the bunker?
And so what does she do? The last scene in the movie, very last thing, credit crawl. Friends theme. What is up with that?
She had to watch the finale of Friends.
What was the point?
It's one of those.
I guess it was probably in the book. That's my guess.
I don't know. It's one of those jokes that somebody tells you that goes on and on and on and on, and it has a terrible punchline, and you're like, it
was so bad. So, but to get the bad taste out of her mouth for that terrible film, which was free and on Netflix, so you might as well watch it and see how bad it is.
I mean,
it doesn't even matter.
We didn't spend any money. It got a lot of buzz.
I don't know anybody
it was big cast. The Obamas were the executive producers. I mean, it had a lot of big.
It felt like talent heavy, creativity low. Like,
or really just not, it just didn't make any common sense.
No,
it didn't make any sense. You could have made some easy changes that I would have said, okay, there's a big dune in front of him. He walks up and sees the car.
We're still talking about
it. I couldn't believe I watched it. Anyway, sorry. That got
get off the road. You won't wreck into a Tesla if you just get off the road. Right. So let's talk about the best TV streaming we saw. Some of the series that we really liked.
There was some good ones.
I know, there really was. I'm just going to say off the top, The Bear was the best thing I've seen. And it was a work of art. That show was beautiful, authentic. It took chances. It had cool tricks. Like one episode was one shot the whole time, camera roaming in and out. Gorgeous, incredible acting, and just star-making performance by Jeremy Allen White. He is just stratosphere for good reason.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I absolutely love The Bear.
I love The Bear too. Yeah,
loved it.
I agree with you there. I thought the final season of Succession was excellent. I thought it was some great writing. So that was a highlight for me.
I think that the favorite thing about the Succession was when Greg is watching, Roy down on the floor of his like Fox Network looking thing. And he goes, and so, he's on the phone with his, the other guy. He's like, so what's he doing now? He goes, well, he's kind of like a shark, like trying to, what was the line? He's like a shark wearing sunglasses, and I don't know what he's doing down there. He's going to kill someone. Like, it's just this weird line. It was just such a good show. God,
beautiful writing.
The writing is like, it's one of those when you watch that, you realize how lazy the writing is on streaming when you hear that, because the writing was so great.
It was impressive.
Yeah.
Burk, what do you got?
What you got?
Well, it's one that we haven't thought of in a long time, but it still kind of resonates. It's something that we may have sort of thought maybe it was last year, but it was actually this year. It was 2023. The Last of Us.
Oh, that's on my list too. I love that so much.
Fantastic. Yeah.
That was a great one. And I'm still, hopefully, we had the writer's strike and everything, which sort of, disabled the industry for so long. Yeah. And we're hoping that, we get another season of this before the young star is like an adult. That's the thing with kids. I worked on shows where before the pandemic, it was funny. I worked on a show that involved a lot of like high school girls playing basketball, and they the pandemic happened. And so after the pandemic, they were talking about the show was popular and they wanted to do another season, but these girls were all like full grown women now. It's like they don't look they don't look like
the thing we have going for us is Bella Ramsey is 20. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
if
she's
she can kind of maintain, I mean, she has that youthful affect, so maybe she
Yeah.
can.
She
Fortunately,
could
she's
pull
not
it
like someone who would be 15 and in it, and then you're done.
off.
yeah,
Right.
she's not like a
can't make it
little
look good.
kid in it, but she's a
could
young,
have
an
a fast forward.
adolescent kind of youngster in it. But yeah,
And I think that episode 3 with Nick Offerman was probably some of the best TV
Yeah.
that's ever been on last year.
Fantastic.
So
Great,
good on
great,
so many
great.
levels. And that
Touching,
beautiful
sweet.
scene. Like those are those choices that filmmakers make and showrunners where there's a big reveal of what happened with Nick Offerman, and instead of showing it,
yeah,
what happened, they just show the open window with the curtains
Yes.
blowing, and they just stay on it. Just
So
stay in this
meaningful.
beautiful,
Yeah.
haunting scene, and that's it. It's like, oh god, it was so good. Love that.
I'll
And
give you
it
another
served the
sing-
story too. It served the story, that whole episode, which sort of took us away from our main characters. It really served the story by adding to the world building. And
Yes.
sometimes when you see a thing like this, a post-apocalyptic or a science fiction story, and you only focus on a couple of people, it kind of makes the world seem, insulated. But if you branch out a bit and you see the other parts of the world and what's happening elsewhere once in a while, to that degree, it worked really well.
It did. And it's one of my favorite video games that I've ever played. It still is, and it's 10 years old. And that character was kind of a minor character you saw a lot, but you didn't know much about him. So I love that they had an episode, kind of filling in his story for us. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Craig Mazin is a great showrunner. He did Chernobyl. He's just really super talented.
Yeah, Chernobyl, fantastic.
I'll give you one episode of Black Mirror. Joan is Awful. I thought that was fantastic.
Yes.
I thought that was so smart. And so the best of Black Mirror is sort of taking technology and going to that nth degree. And I thought it was just really creative and fun and kind of funny, but also creepy and just really good. So that's a
good one, Mark.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah.
That one was great. That one is the one, if anybody wants to know about AI and what people are fearing and all that kind of thing, that's the one to watch. That'll of bring it home for you.
If anything, I think that shows what got the whole strike started because they went, oh shit, can this happen? Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
I think also I just want to throw out, I just finished watching the first season of Silo. Blew me away. Talk about great world building. Very simple idea. They're in a silo underground. They don't know why they're there. They've been there for 100 years. They have like kind of the founders wrote these book of rules, kind of like a Bible. They're trying to survive underground. They don't know why they're underground. So that's fascinating. And there's only one big window that shows them the outside, and it's all desolate. And so there becomes a controversy. And is that really what's outside, or are they trying to trick us? Should we try and go? So fantastic show, and it totally nails the ending. And because you're like, what can they? And they set up a lot of ideas that you're wanting them to resolve. That's going to be in the big ending. Completely turns everything on its head. It's so great. So highly recommend. And Rebecca Ferguson
sounds like right up my.
Actress. You would love it. And it's a very lean, small, like a small world. Really it centers on just mostly like 3 or 4 main characters, including Tim Robbins, who's amazing. This is kind of creepy, dude. But really, really cool concepts about the whole idea of like if we had to go underground to live underground for some weird reason, the kind of things that would start happening. So it was really,
like
really
that Cloverfield Lane film, the Cloverfield thing with John Goodman.
Except not as stalkery. That felt a little like holding someone captive.
But there's a tradition of science fiction stories that take place on what they call century ships, which are spaceships. It's a concept that goes way back to the 50s. A spaceship where people were born on the spaceship, and the idea is to put generations of people. A generation ship is what they call. Yeah. So that in 600 years it's going to arrive at the new world, at the planet, and then the descendants of the people who left would emerge into the new world. That kind of idea.
Yeah,
that was that. Like there was a Swedish, like I think a sci-fi film that was like that. I forget what it was called.
That you told me about.
That's right.
Akara or something, Anyara or something.
Yeah,
which I really liked. So, well, listen, there's a lot of good things to watch, and
Gen V was good. We'll throw out Gen V because if you love boys, Gen V was a nice little side.
Okay, I haven't seen
another one.
Barry finale was great.
Before Mark wraps it up, I have another one.
Oh, sorry, man. Sorry. Don't mean to rush. What do you got?
A really good series, a good solid series that I think all of us enjoyed. Poker Face.
Yes, that was fun.
Oh, absolutely.
That was fun.
Really fun, old school style crime drama series with a really engaging and fun main character who was just unexpectedly compelling. She's not like a lot of other TV characters. She has problems, and it's kind of got a vibe. They clearly went for a vibe of the old Columbo TV series and some 70s type of the way the story is told
Columbo.
and things like that. Yeah, and she was quite a bit like Columbo.
She got kind of quirky and.
I love her, and she's perfect in this. Her character, is
Natasha Leone, right?
Yeah, she's wonderful. And I like the setup. It was like comfort food. How's she going to solve this week's murder, which was Columbo?
But each episode is discrete. It's not one of those shows that you have to watch.
Right.
Well, it's good to watch them in order, but you can watch separate episodes.
Story. Yeah, that's a good one, Burk. Yeah, because I really like that too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more we haven't mentioned that are out there.
Yeah.
It's a TV. You can sit down in front of your big screen TV and watch so many good things.
So much.
And some things to stay away from.
Yeah, now we tried to help you. You don't have to waste your time because we did. Be sure and put in the comments what you think. Some of your favorite stuff was during the year, the movies, the streaming, anything we might have missed, and let us know what you think the worst thing is you saw. Because we always enjoy a little hate on that.
We love a little
people
hate
that deserve it. When someone takes a good thing and makes it bad, they deserve the hate.
Or they just
looking at you.
Do something else. Come up with your own story.
I know that making movies is hard.
But it's like you said, I think what makes us feel sort of anger about it is the fact that it's a lost potential. Like with that show, you got Mahershala Ali in there and Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke and Kevin Bacon, and it's a science fiction story. It's like, how can you fail with that?
Glossy and big and beautiful, and they just it's a big The internet is out.
Yeah. I'm a weak man.
All right. Anyway, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and join our channel, and you will see content just for you. Yes. Reviews like Godzilla -1, which we will get to eventually, all of us, but Mark will get to it right now.
I'll do a little review for you. That's ASAP. Right. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Nice.
See you soon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye.